this whole trafficking children thing is the ultimate red line for me. You know, I've seen some crazy protests in this country over the years, and obviously I value the First Amendment more than anything. I think everyone should have a right to freely and peacefully protest. But I've seen protests that I'm like, I mean, pretty much any protest I've looked, you wouldn't catch me dead at any of these. I would literally rather die than be at them. I don't think it really does anything, unfortunately, but the right to be able to do it is important to me. That said, I have watched cities burn over one person being killed. And yet we have one of the most prolific, if not the most prolific example of trafficked and missing and killed children on our hands right here. And I barely see, if I have seen, that's giving credit. I personally have not seen a single fucking protest in the streets about this. And I wonder why. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Great Society Show. I am Julian Dorey.
And I'm Joey Deef. How you doing?
How you doing? Deef, another day where we got to sift through, fucking 185 different things and decide the top 10 we're going to get to talk about?
Yeah. It just never ends.
It never ends. It never ends. And, you know, it's been nice to be able to talk with a lot of people, whether it be people that I have on the podcast or friends of mine who I've had on the podcast before, or friends of mine who are just fascinated with this stuff, and actually see a way larger group caring about what's going on here. That's been really nice to see, especially like over the last week. I've gotten a lot more phone calls and texts from people genuinely like, hey, can you give me a high level on this? Can you give me a high level on that? And so today, some of the things that we found in the last couple days that also has been, there's some amazing research that's going on on Twitter. So
it's never ending.
I want to make sure today, a few times at least, when there's a really, really good one, we have the actual original tweet too and give some credit on it. But we're going to be discussing Les Wexner. Obviously, he did that deposition last time when we recorded. He was about to do it. So now we have some video to react to. You saw us get into it a little bit with John Kiriakou in the recent episode 388, but today we want to actually look at a few of the clips and put them in context together. There is also the fact that Jeffrey Epstein went on camera and walked Steve Bannon through this whole thing back in whatever it was, 2018, where he full-blown admits that he's a part of the fucking Trilateral Commission, and explains what his association with that was, which has to do with the Rockefellers, because he was on like the board of their foundation or one of those things. You'll hear him talk about it in the clip. And there's a whole thing about the Rockefeller ties that are quite incestuous within the Trilateral Commission. Mm-hmm. That all said, the fact that John Kiriakou also discussed on camera someone that he used to know quite well, that he has a court order, he's not allowed to talk about the woman, but it sounds like he actually was like friends with her back when this was happening. And what I'm referring to is he discussed the fact that a former friend of his had literally risen up through the corporate structure, that's how he put it pretty broadly, and been invited to a meeting of the Trilateral Commission where they discussed arms deals, which is just fascinating on a million different levels and ties directly into the types of things we are talking about here in the Epstein Files. And obviously, you've been hearing me cite left and right the whole Tucker Carlson supra-government idea. And the more and more you read these emails and you make charts of people and you make charts of layers, the more and more I think it's actually so brilliant and perfectly put. Because as a reminder to people who maybe haven't heard that before discussed, if you're just watching my channel for the first time or haven't heard Tucker explain it, what he said is that you have, your governments, your presidents, and your elected leaders like that, and you used to think they were like maybe the top of the chain-ish at least. And the reality is there's at least two layers above them, at least. There's a layer that are the people that they work for who work for the people that they work for. And the people that they work for are the people who actually run the world, the people who are on the Trilateral Commission, the people that are part of the banking families and stuff like that. And that middle layer between them are the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world who get to just fucking run around and hold all these people on a string. These people referring to presidents, world leaders, bureaucratic elements, if you will, and effectively be the fixers as to how the world runs. So we're going to discuss that. And then there is also an insane new layer to the Maxwell family that is just like, when I read it, it was one of those things where my instant reaction was, well, that's got to be a fake tweet. You know, because by the way, there's a lot of stuff floating around right now that you have got to fucking fact check, because the way that a story like this, a part of the way a story like this will go away, is if we just run with every fucking thing we hear and call it 100% true with 100% evidence. You have heard me say, and I will continue to say this because it's true, that there are extreme theories that I would have dismissed 2 months ago that now I cannot dismiss. That does not mean we have full-blown proof for them yet. There is certainly a lot of smoke around stuff, and that is certainly something we're going to talk about. But we have to make sure we continue to follow the evidence and the facts, no matter where they leave us. We already know it's the darkest shit we've ever looked at. You know, I, for one, I'm not rooting for it to get darker. I hope that some of the craziest shit we've heard about, eventually we actually can rule out. Not sure we're going to be able to, but you know, what we can't do is say that that's definitely the case. So we're going to talk about that Maxwell tie though, because that was just like, I was just like, oh my fucking God. I looked at the first tweet and I'm like, definitely fake. And then I went through and I went, oh my God, it's not only real, it's 100% real down to the date. We're going to go through that today. Hey guys, 3 quick things. Number 1, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It's a huge, huge help. Number 2, if you'd like to join my Patreon for early uncensored releases of the full episodes, you can join via the link in my description or in the pinned comment below. And number 3, if you'd like to join my clipping community for a chance to make content from the show and make money, you can join via the Discord link in my description below. So, by the way, Deef, who's stepped down or been fired so far as a result of their exposure in jmail.world?
I got a little list right here for you if you want to check this out.
Okay, so Peter Mandelson, we discussed him last week, the
We'll
UK...
see some emails from him today.
Right? The UK government fixer. He's someone I put on the list, Steve, for next week's episode or the week after. There's a couple things on him that we have not discussed yet that I think you and I got to do a little more work on. And then...
Yeah, because I pulled some emails from him today, and they're just weird.
Like the weird shit I was telling you about regarding certain words?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get to that today for sure. So we got Peter Mandelson. We got Brad Karp, someone I haven't done a lot of work on. Peter Attia, we all know that story. Bon voyage, my nut friend. David Ross, Larry Summers stepped down. Obviously, former president of Harvard, former Treasury Secretary, Master of the Universe. Joanna Rubinstein, Miroslav Lajcak, and, well, that last person I won't list because they're not confirmed yet. Also, Pritzker. Tom Pritzker stepped down from the board of, why am I forgetting it right now?
Pritzker.
I should know that. Yeah, but Tom Pritzker obviously has a very creepy email that could be innocent or could be the worst thing ever regarding flying out to see boys with toys in Afghanistan. The reason... All right. Let me go back to that email for a minute because that actually came under scrutiny by Joe Rogan. He discussed that because Jamie brought up a clip of Deef and I discussing that email, and Rogan looked at it and said, well, no, they could just be blowing shit up out in the mountains of Afghanistan, which, Joe, is perfectly fair to say that. And my conclusion from it was it looks sick, but we can't say this, and this email is referring to one from June 2011, where Pritzker wrote to Epstein, I don't have it in front of me right now, but something along the lines of, out in the remote hills of Afghanistan, Petraeus, referring to General Petraeus, loaned me a helicopter, actually 2, and it was my birthday wish. I'm going out to see boys with toys in Afghanistan, won't have much signal.
Here you go.
It could be, yeah, Deef has it up right now, so he can toss that on the screen for a second just for people's review. It could, on one end of the spectrum, it could just be they're going out to test some fucking weapons, which is, you know, a little weird that a billionaire is going out with the U.S. Army to do that, but whatever. That I would be very happy if that was what it was. I'll put it that way, regardless of whether or not that's inappropriate. On the other end of the spectrum, you have to wonder the way that he put that and knowing how a lot of things in Afghanistan work with respect to that, which I've had Delta Force guys, multiple Army Rangers, multiple Navy SEALs from different teams. That's just off the top of my head what I know. All discuss the unfortunate, awful underbelly culture of pedophilia in Afghanistan. And when you Google Boys with Toys Afghanistan, that is what comes up. Does that mean that's what it is? Not necessarily. But again, this guy stepped right the fuck down. He's a billionaire from the Pritzker family. That's interesting to me. They hold a lot of sway over a lot of things.
And they're just, I don't know. I get where he's coming from, but like everything in these emails is in some form of code.
A lot.
Yeah. So it's just like, all right, hopefully give him the benefit of the doubt, but like,
right. My point is not to say we definitely know. That's why I'm clarifying. I want to make sure that that came clear, because that did not, just from the clip, like that obviously didn't come clear to Joe Rogan, and I understand that. But like the point is not to say it's definitely this. And that goes into my original intro point here about not just immediately saying it is definitely 100% this thing if we don't have the full evidence. But the point is, like, that's fucking weird. Yeah. And if you don't admit that the possibility exists that that's fucking weird, your eyes are shut, in my opinion. Now, I got to say, man, the third hour of that podcast with Kiriakou that we put out, really, first of all, always a lot of fun to have John in here. We had a great time, and he's just the best. But that affected the third hour, affected me a lot, because what it turned into, we were having this nice back and forth, laughing, and still finding a way to talk about a serious topic throughout as well. I felt like we had an appropriate tone with that, but we're doing that for like 2 hours, and then it gets into the third hour, and it ends up being, this wasn't the plan, but John knew that I was going to bring up some emails with him. Thief and I were just going to basically throw darts at the board once we got to that point in the podcast and just pick out some emails that stood out to us, which is what we did. And it turned into me essentially narrating some emails, looking to John and saying, what do you make at that? And he's just staring at the screen like this. Yeah. Like rubbing his hand over the mouth, speechless.
Yeah, he was speechless.
I've known John Kiriakou a long time. I've recorded with him for 6 hours at a time twice. I've recorded with him a total of 4 times. We have about 18, 19 hours on camera together. And my God, we've recorded a lot of podcasts off camera that should have been recorded in the kitchen out there. I have never seen John Kiriakou speechless like that. There are things that shook him to his core. The Shadow Commission one, which and righteously so, he was saying, I think in the podcast as well, but I want to make sure, like he said this after the podcast for sure. He's like, I want to do some more work on that to see what the there is. But when we showed him I think that one email was from
someone named Ed.
Yeah, but there were multiple emails. One was 2002, one was 2003. There was another reference to it in 2001 after 9/11. But when they were mentioning the 9/11 Shadow Commission, I could see almost like an existential angst on John's face, in the sense that we all know, or a lot of you know John's story. He was a whistleblower to CIA. He had previously really liked a lot of the work he did at CIA, did some things like take down Abu Zubaydah, ran a bunch of missions in the Middle East. He started off his career as like the chief historian of Saddam Hussein, like the ex-psychological profiler on him. He was briefing H.W. Bush, I believe prior to Desert Storm, about Saddam Hussein at like age 25. So he had a wild career, and that's why, you got the John Kiriakou memes burning out there on the internet all over the place because he tells these insane stories. Oh, no, it's just
he's got tons of them.
Bro.
Tons of them.
Those clips are, oh my God. What is it they say? They were saying on Black Twitter? They're
John, never the same story, Kiriakou.
Yeah, that. But then they were also saying, they were like, this man, the funniest dude on the internet, he ain't never told a joke in his life.
Yeah. Everyone believes him. That's the best part.
Yeah.
I saw one that really cracked me up. It was like, in this life, you can either be an Andy Bustamante or a John Kiriakou. Which way, Western man?
Oh my God, that's good. That's so good. It's funny how they don't like each other. They just both talk shit on each other. It's great.
Yeah, it is.
But they're also, you know,
respectably.
yeah, respect. Well, not between the two of them, but respectively.
Well, they had some decorum.
They had decorum when they sat down with Danny Jones.
Yeah,
for sure, and they actually like had a lot of common ground on some common sense things, which was nice to see. But Andy, I've always said this to him. There are things that Andy says where in my head, and I'm sure everyone else's head out there, you hear it, and it's confirmation that he still works with him, because I'll tell you, I know he doesn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are actions in his life that he personally does, and then he'll say something as it pertains to the government, and I'm like, well, every action you do in your life is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
John, on the other hand, is someone who was happy to work there, believed in, it sounds like, a lot of the things he did, but eventually when he started to notice some elements that were not good, and he was asked to get into, you know, doing some of the black site torture stuff and being trained on that, he was like, that's anti-constitutional. Fuck that. I'm not doing it. And one thing led to another, and it all ends up to him being fucking framed and then, you know, being the CIA whistleblower. So John, obviously, righteously so, has a huge bone to pick with CIA. What has always been fascinating, though, the reason I bring that up is because he is still willing to be objective about things that he was involved in that were good, or people that worked there that he thought, you know, weren't the kind of people that would go do MK Ultra, which I, for one, would like. If you're going to have an organization like that, those are the people you want working there. You don't want the other type, right? So that said, when he was sitting there hearing about a shadow commission and then seeing all the data that was missing from 1999 to 2001 in the file dumps, you could see that some of the story that he believed about 9/11, and it's not to say he believed all of it, but some of the idea that, like, okay, it was definitely at least this and that, and then there was some fucked up shit over here. I wonder what that was. Now it was like, it was almost, no pun intended, it was like Building 7 coming down on him.
Yeah.
He was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, what the fuck? Like, it was, and watching, I'm sure you guys could feel it at home, but watching and here, you know, obviously you're in here, D, if we had Phil, the audio guy, in here, like, we were just turning to each other like, fuck, he's got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little shocked at how that third hour went. And like he was saying, John's looked at this case for many, many years, but he was like, you know, this latest tranche, and that was kind of the idea of him coming in, we were going to have him react to a lot of the latest tranche because he hadn't done like a deep dive on it yet. But he's like, I gotta, like, actually, he said there's what, 2.5 million new emails from that drop.
Yeah.
I gotta read like a fucking million of these. And, you know, I look forward to seeing what his full takeaway is after that, for sure. But we still have 3 million that we know of that they say they're never going to release in violation of federal law.
Yeah, you think that'll hold up? Part of me thinks that if we get into some sort of conflict in Iran and all that, it's going to kind of become one of those like, we got too much going on right now, you know.
This is why I like you, D. If you look at where the puck goes.
Yeah.
I want you to be wrong, but it's an important point.
You know,
everything is a distraction for something. Every single thing is a distraction for something. So this episode's coming out right after we put out the Roca episode, I believe, with Max and Max, who I love, who Roca News really actually tries to be real news. These guys try to see every fucking thing down the middle.
They really
In Max Frost's defense, He just got back from the Middle East where he filmed 12 documentaries, so he hasn't had a chance to go through the depth of the latest tranche. So there were a few things where he was like, well, we don't have proof it's this or that. And I was like, no, we do. And I was getting worked up about it. But like, don't take that out on him. Like, he's going to go review it and everything now. And a lot of the podcast wasn't about Epstein. I just want to be clear on that. Those guys are fucking awesome. I get, and you know, Atif, this actually has to be said. I have to admit, I get worked up about this case now in a way that I have never gotten worked up about something in my public career. Now, I told you last week, I make no apologies for the initial freak out at Howard Lutnick. That was real and raw and what it was. And we'll check back in on him today. He made a nice appearance at the State of the Union the other night. But, you know, that's fine. You can have a little crash out once in a while. But I gotta admit, like, this whole trafficking children thing is the ultimate red line for me. You know, I've seen some crazy protests in this country over the years, and obviously I value the First Amendment more than anything. I think everyone should have a right to freely and peacefully protest. But I've seen protests that I'm like, I mean, pretty much any protest I've looked, you wouldn't catch me dead at any of these. I would literally rather die than be at them. I don't think it really does anything, unfortunately, but the right to be able to do it is important to me. That said, I have watched cities burn over one person being killed. And yet we have one of the most prolific, if not the most prolific example of trafficked and missing and killed children on our hands right here. And I barely see, if I have seen, that's giving credit. I personally have not seen a single fucking protest in the streets about this. I have not seen people, and I don't want to see people burn down anything or anything like that. Let's be very clear. Like, that's the whole point. A protest should be peaceful and not doing that. But I damn well haven't seen any of that I've seen in the past for all this other shit. And I wonder why. I know a lot of people, I said it at the beginning, I know a lot of people care about this a lot. And that's awesome. That's great. But like, it's still not enough. And it's still not the desperation that it needs to be. Because to Deef's point, they're going to find a way to get the impetus off this. The second we finished recording last week, the last episode, 387, where we were doing this, you see Trump suddenly announce, I've directed the Pentagon to release the UFO files. They're giving you fucking aliens now. I've been asking for that for years. You've seen the podcasts I do on it. I care a lot about that. I want disclosure. I want to know what we know about other fucking planets or exoplanets, as the great David Kipping would say out there, and who the fuck's living on them, and how big this galaxy might be, and what our government knows. I want to know all of it. But if you can't see that is the ultimate, like, look at the fucking shiny object, look over here, everyone run over here, look at this, I'm going to give you something, boom, go chew on your little chew toy while we do the real shit. If you can't see that that's what it is, I can't help you. And now Deep's bringing up the point of something even more on this earth, no pun intended. They're going to move up the war drums for Iran.
Or Mexico now. Maybe.
Or Mexico.
Could be Mexico now. I forgot about that too.
Yeah, and you know what? And we're gonna have Katarina Schultz in here this week. She's I'm flying her in to do a podcast. She had some unbelievable takes on this in episode 336, and I believe in episode 313.
Yeah, she was
last
ahead
summer
of it
as well. A lot of people love to go after Kat Schultz when she breaks a story or says she has something, but she brings receipts, and she ends up being right about a lot of stuff. So, I don't know, maybe some other people got to do a little better work. But, you know, of course, that's crazy, and the cartels are a huge problem. I'm not understanding that. I'll come back to Iran in a minute. But, like, the timing of that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was, at least. But what the hell do I know?
Yeah, there's some things I can't say right now that really make me think the timing of that was really interesting.
I was just like, wow, that's crazy. And then they attack in response in like a very drastic manner, mind you, too, like shooting up the airport.
This is insane.
I'm like, wow, the timing.
It was insane. We're going to get all into that because it is an important story. I'm not going to understate it. It's just the timing of when this is all going down, as we're saying, is quite interesting because I, for one, have a feeling they kept that one in the back pocket for a while. And I'm not going to tell you I know that. But if I were a betting man, I'd feel very, very strongly about that based on some other tea leaves I've had a chance to read. So, hopefully I'm wrong about that. And they did just fucking find the guy. And it is innocent, and it is what it is now. But we'll find out. I'm sure I'm going to ask Kat about that. But I don't know. The whole Iran thing, though.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out Mike Huckabee for being the most retarded person on planet Earth. He might have at least delayed this attack because John breaks that story on Friday, which, again, we talked, and we never do this because I'm never planning on breaking a fucking story on a podcast. But before the podcast, he came in and told me about what his source in the White House said about the plan to attack Iran. And we talked about it off camera, and he had the goods. Now, my first thought, because he was saying it'll be Monday or Tuesday, my first thought was that I don't know if that's going to happen because he's got the State of the Union. I also didn't know that we were going to finish the podcast and see that Tucker released the Huckabee interview where Huckabee very casually says, I wouldn't mind if Israel controlled the whole Middle East. They can have it all, which, of course, that might cause a diplomatic problem when the fucking U.S. ambassador to Israel says the country should have fucking greater Israel and beyond in the whole Middle East. Yeah, Saudi Arabia didn't like that. And that probably threw a little wrench in any plans maybe that would have been for Monday or Tuesday. But I personally thought that part of the report of what John's source was saying probably wouldn't be true because of the timing of it. That said, there was another call, and I said this in the Roca podcast, but for people who didn't see that, I do want to repeat this. I got a phone call when we went live with that story ahead of time on Saturday night on X. I got a phone call from what I would describe as a fucking amazing source. And I recorded a video where I was going to explain what this source said. But at the time, I did not run with it. And I held it because this guy did not want to go on the record with his name. And so it was going to have to be an unnamed source around blank, 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 referring to sources that are unnamed within the White House. 2 layers of that just felt journalistically a little beyond what I wanted to do. So I let it sit. But now that we're past that, I'm okay talking about it. This guy who called me, someone very wired into the White House, had seen the report from John. He called me. He said, John is over the target, and this is going to happen. Trump's mind is made up. He wants to do this. I'll come back to that in a second. But there's a couple differences. He right away said, I don't think it'll be Monday or Tuesday from what I'm hearing because State of the Union and the timing. That's number one. Number two, he said John had said that the only people who were against it at this point were J.D. Vance and then Tulsi Gabbard. And this guy corroborated that J.D. Vance is against it. He corroborated that Gabbard's against it, but she's not even in the room anymore at this point, basically. So her voice doesn't really matter. He did say that there were a few other people in the White House who were questioning it as well. What he did not say is that those were the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which was a big part of John's report. And the fact that they are on board about this is very, very fascinating. But what he was saying about Trump making up his mind is that Trump is feeling, and this is a direct quote, a sugar high from the strike in Venezuela. He wants to just repeat it and get a quick victory. The people who are speaking against this, like the J.D. Vance, are reminding him that this is a totally different situation, totally different environment. It's a Middle Eastern country of 92 million people, and that a quick strike is probably not going to be able to do it. We don't have the resources to be able to move that quickly. It damn well won't be 28 minutes, and that's an issue. But Trump he cares all about the legacy as well, and he wants to be the guy who took down the Ayatollah's regime. I, for one, and I pressed on this, and this part of the conversation I'll leave off the record with him because I didn't talk to him about this part and later discussing this. But I pressed him on some other stuff, and I think that the source I was talking to, and I think there's a little more to it than that. But his mind is very, very made up about this. You don't just put all these fucking military resources, which is a very nice way of putting it, all over that area and not do anything. It's just not what it is. They don't want to make a deal. Everyone's been saying for the last 30 years that Iran's 1 week away from having a nuclear fucking weapon. It's never the case. I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon either, by the way. I'm not rooting for that. But, like, it's just fucking propaganda. And to Deef's point, it's a giant, giant distraction. And I don't want to lose sight of the opportunity we have here. I've talked about it before. Shout out to the original YouTube commenter who said this on John Rondi's podcast with me in the comments section. But he talked about, that commenter said a few weeks ago, for so long we've been fighting horizontally, it's time to fight vertically. That's where the fight is. And that's exactly what this moment is. This is the most bipartisan story of my lifetime. Everybody is guilty left and right. Let me rephrase that. Everybody who is guilty consists of people across the left and right. The cover-up that has occurred for fucking 5 or 6 presidential administrations has spanned left and right and everything in between.
Yep.
And the people we are referring to are people committing the worst fucking crimes known to man while having the most money and power in the world. It's not hard. It's not like, this is the easiest, go all in and actually try to make a change. It is the easiest situation to see that. So to not see people out there fucking, for once, like having a nice, good old protest in the street, like all over the place, is a little disappointing considering our previous history with that stuff. But, you know, at least
it's also cold out. It is kind of cold.
It is kind of cold. There's a lot of snow. You're right.
You know, COVID, George Floyd, it was May.
It was May.
Nice out.
Steve, how's the weather in Florida right now?
I'd assume it's nice.
How's the weather in Georgia?
Oh, I see what you're getting at. You got me.
How's the weather in Texas?
I'm just speaking on New York. It's Brick City.
How's the weather in California?
LA could get rocking right now.
California's protest hub numero uno.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Yeah, maybe the winter towns get a little pass for the moment. But, and again, I fucking can't stand protests, so what the hell am I saying? But you understand the point. It's like, totally. Where are those same people? Where's that energy right there? Deef, though, like, you got to remember, at least, we got the ace in the hole here. There's one person who is on this case who I know is out there looking in multiple different directions because his eyeballs got one eye hunting and one eye fishing. He's going to find the culprit.
Yeah.
My man Kash Patel is out there slanging beers, spiking them like he's never drank in his life before with the U.S. men's hockey team in another fucking country, while the entire biggest case of all time is being covered up right here, including having emails that show his organization not responding to things that are actually real claims.
He stinks. He's committed to justice.
We are run by retards. The last administration was dead, and this one's retarded. God bless America.
This is our country.
You know, and I had said to Mike Yeagley in episode 351, the second time he was in here back in the fall, I said to him, we put it out as a clip actually back then, and I put it out on YouTube again recently. No, I didn't put this one on YouTube, but it's on my Instagram. I had said, the guy I'm watching is Dan Bongino. And this is when Bongino was still working as the deputy director at FBI. And the reason I said that is because every time I saw Dan Bongino do these public hits throughout his year being deputy director, he looked like a hostage. He looked, he always had that vein in his forehead, sit there with his arms like this and freak out into the camera just for a fucking hour about all his politics when he had his when he had his podcast. But like, it was that same look, except a look of complete, like he had seen a ghost, especially when they talked about this case. That's really what I'm referring to. And it felt like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And actually, I was hoping, I was like, obviously, this guy has had is from a very different world than I am and very different point of view than I am. But I was hoping, I'm like, if he leaves there, this is why I said I was watching him. If he leaves there, will he be the volcano that explodes and actually brings out some justice. It was wishful thinking. It has been the complete opposite. He has run a total PR campaign that, again, we talk about choice A and choice B when you're doing PR. Choice A being not even a good choice, but it's just like, well, this won't make things worse. And choice B being like, this is the worst possible thing I could say or do. He's hitting choice B like crazy. And he's just going online every day as if he's going to gaslight his whole audience who wanted all these files released and wanted the truth to suddenly be like, Dan might have a point. We might be good here.
I genuinely was just thinking in my head, like, who actually tunes into him? Like, who? Like, can you describe to me like the archetype of person who's tuning into Dan Bongino?
At this moment, I actually can't.
Neither. That's the problem.
Maybe Michael Tracy. He's probably tuning in.
He is. He's definitely.
He probably believes every fucking word.
He watched that clip of Dan and Kash, and he was like, oh, "Fuck, they're so right."
Yeah, that's it. Nothing to see here.
Oh,
no such thing as a victim. They're not real.
Oh man.
Listen, I am all for the exchange of ideas. I am all for hashing things out in public. I am all for discussing things with nuance. It's quite literally what I do on my show and get a lot of shit for whenever someone's on one side or the other and decides to disagree with a random guess or a point of view or something I say or something like that. Fuck it. I don't care. We're going to try to see things where equilibrium is. There is not an equilibrium with kids. There's no equilibrium there of like, well, it could actually just no. Again, you want to argue about some of the specific crimes, specific people, evidence or lack thereof, that's cool. But when you try to explain away this whole thing and say, no, it wasn't even that, or I've even heard people try to come out and say, well, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't a pedophile. There's like another term. Or he was into 16 or 17-year-olds. Well, I guess you didn't read the fucking case from 2005, 2006, 2007 in West Palm Beach. It's very on record what he was into. Like, when we are starting to not agree on the definition of what a predator is, like, that's how a story like this goes away, because we've lost all common decency in society. So when I see people who are doing that, their opinion is discarded on this matter. I don't want to know them. I don't want to deal with them. This is not, to quote the old like leftist ideology, this isn't a political issue. It's about human rights. It actually kind of applies here. Okay, it's not a political issue about trafficking kids. And we got mountains of evidence about it. We have emails where he admits it. We have all the emails talking in code. We got pictures of all these fucking disgusting things that even the redacted things look absolutely disgusting. Imagine what they look like unredacted. Like, there are plenty of details, once again, to still be found and to not treat as law. And I said that at the beginning of the intro. I'll repeat it again. We have to go where the evidence leads us, no matter where that is. But there are a list of things that on a broad 30,000-foot view in the air cannot be argued with at this point. This is a case regarding sex trafficking. It is a case regarding child sex trafficking. It is a case regarding infinite blackmail. It is intelligence related to multiple intelligence agencies, from Mossad to CIA to other places potentially as well, that I think clearly have evidence of intelligence peddling that Jeffrey Epstein did. It is world banking related. We have seen that. That is without question. We see that Epstein talked about representing the Rothschilds. We see them corroborating that in the emails. And it is arms deals related, because we have seen them discuss the Trilateral Commission and many things like that. When you can't start with the basic facts like that, and when you are someone who says that none of that stuff is real, none of it. Maybe one or two you argue because you're a little uninformed. Okay, fine. I'll have that argument with you and we'll hash it out like human beings. But when you try to say none of that's happening, or basically none of that's happening, or, well, it's all made up and, guys like Les Wexner are totally innocent, there's no conversation. There's no conversation. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that I'm not sorry. How about that?
You on the payroll, man.
On the payroll.
On
Allegedly.
the payroll.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
I
no,
say that
allegedly,
without any
allegedly.
evidence. I say that without any evidence.
Me too.
But people like that have the appearance of being on somebody's payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, maybe their microphone doesn't work suddenly when they're asked about it.
Oldest trick in the book, dude.
Oldest trick in the book. Yeah.
That had John cracking. John was just like,
Oh, yeah, because John and Benz were on the fucking panel.
John looked into camera and just did this.
John was doing the Jack Nicholson meme. Like that.
Dude, he loved it.
Oh, that's incredible. Incredible. But Bill Gates apologized. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. I mean, last week he said that shit wasn't real.
And now he said some of it's real, which means next week more of it will be real.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah, I got that right here, actually. I got this post.
You do?
New York Post.
Yeah, so he admitted to 2 affairs with 2 different Russian women. I guess he has a type. But one of them was one that we've discussed on the podcast before because it was released in a Wall Street Journal article like 2 or 3 years ago. And it was the bridge player. I think her name was Masha. She was trying to start like this bridge-related app or something like that she wanted Jeffrey Epstein to invest in. And Epstein hooked Bill Gates up with her and they ended up fucking. And she was of age. I'll say that part. Because that's what he's admitting to. He's admitting to affairs when he was married to Melinda that were of age. But this also comes out of there being that draft email that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to himself about trying to help Bill with an STD that he may have given his wife and, you know, given her a secret serum unknowingly in her drink to help her get treatment for it. Like, it's really sick shit. But he's not admitting. He made very specific that he's not admitting to any crimes or being a witness to any crimes, but he did travel with the guy around the world and regrets all of his dealings with him in doing that. But like you said, Deef, it's another example of the puck moving a little bit. And one of the things that came out in that original Wall Street Journal story when they reported on the bridge player, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago, was that there was an email that Jeffrey wrote to Bill Gates after he had, I think it was like Epstein invested in the second company this girl brought to him. And then Bill was like stiffing Jeff on other things or maybe trying to finally get out of his life. I don't remember the details. And Jeff sent him like a very coded email basically saying, yeah, Bill, it would be a real shame if scandals like this came out about you. You owe me money for that investment I made, by the way. Basically like shaking the guy down, which, you know, fuck Bill Gates. Deserves it. But that's an old email. That's not a new email. That's something we found out. So we'll do a Bill Gates check next week to see what else he's copped to at that point. But again, and I have to say this, we still, as far as I know, if someone has something different than what I'm about to say, please share it in the comments so I can review the evidence. But we still don't have, there is no proof, emphasis on the word proof, that Bill Gates committed sex crimes with Jeffrey Epstein. Does it look like there's a lot of smoke? And do I, for one, if I were a betting man, would I bet on that being the case? Fuck yeah. But I have to say that. Like, you can't, like, we have to run with what we have and then try to keep uncovering things. So keep the pressure on and it'll get uncovered. Speaking of getting uncovered, the amazing thing is that these files are basically creating like a public investigation.
Yeah.
And you have everything from major publications doing it and finding things before anyone finds it on Twitter, and then people on Twitter finding things before anyone else finds it. It's incredible to watch the world like put a web together from all different thought groups, by the way, which is pretty cool.
No, it's
right.
It's cool.
So there was a report.
But again, is it just going to be a fun game for us to all play together and then like nothing happens, you know? Like, oh, remember when everyone was fucking united and we were meeting up once a week and we were putting together some strings? What happened? Oh yeah, they got away with it.
They're all dead. It's all over.
But what do you want me to pull
send you a
here?
link from the New York Post about the storage locker?
Oh yeah, this one. I got that.
Yeah, the first one right there.
Yeah.
So this was from a report from the Telegraph reviewing financial records within the files. Jeffrey Epstein secretly stashed computers, photographs, and other items in storage units scattered across the U.S. and paid private detectives to move the material around as investigators closed in on him. That's referring to the investigations back in the 2000s. Financial records and emails reviewed by the Telegraph revealed that the dead pedo rented at least 6 storage lockers nationwide, some starting in 2003, and paid for them until 2019, the year he died by suicide, allegedly, in lockup. The units were used to house items from his homes, including computers and CDs from his private Caribbean island, Little St. James, the outlet reported. Can you give me the second link now, Deef?
Yeah, absolutely.
In there, because this is where they uncovered some of the things that were in there, because another part of the Telegraph's report is that there is no record through the search warrants of the FBI ever searching these places. They now know they exist from the files, but there's no record of them having searched it. So New York Post puts out a report saying sex slave manuals, dozens of address books, and a huge porn stash were among the trove of sickening items found in one of Jeffrey Epstein's secret storage lockers in Florida, it has been revealed. An inventory list obtained by the Telegraph. So he left an inventory list. Again, this isn't from the FBI. He had a personal inventory list. Showed the late pedo had a 3-page list of masseuses, letters, and lab results hidden away in the Palm Beach storage unit. VHS tapes and DVDs, erotic... Doing exactly what you think with kids. We're all in it, including sex toys and box loads of them. Yeah, I don't even want to read more of that. You know what I wonder, Deef?
Lab results.
His own lab results as well.
Yeah. What the hell?
I really wonder. I wonder if right now, even at this moment, there's still some sort of like second layer. This is total speculation right now, people. I'm just thinking out loud.
We're just hitting spec.
There's some sort of second layer dead man switch sitting in a fucking storage unit somewhere.
Oh, there has to be. I mean, I know we're doing just spec here, folks, just pure spec. I totally buy into something like that, though. There's got to be.
There's got to be something.
Stuff like this, there's always something.
It's let's look at it from the base level before we found out the inventory list and what's in there. Just on the surface, someone having a storage unit is perfectly normal. A lot of people I know have a storage unit. It's fine. Doesn't have to be illicit or anything. Obviously, he had illicit shit in there. Having 6 of them, if he's a guy that has 6 houses, 6, 7 houses, okay. That makes sense. But the fact that they were never checked by the FBI, even though there's records of them existing, tells me that there's more.
That's weird.
And it's weird.
I don't like how it seems like the FBI didn't do their job at all, ever, with this entire thing.
It's almost like they were compromised.
Yeah, right? Because it's just where in the order of operations here do you see a bunch of storage units on record and you don't even search them? That's just one thing. It's insane. You know? I bet you if a random civilian who didn't have money and power was apprehended by the authorities, they'd conduct the searches on those folks. Just saying. I don't know.
Just a thought.
I don't know.
Let's toss it.
It's just spec. Just spec.
Well, I alluded to it earlier. Perhaps there's some compromise. Perhaps it's not the wolf that snuck in through the back door, but the wolf you let in through the front door in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
Now, Ghislaine Maxwell has multiple siblings. One of those siblings is Christine Maxwell, who right on her Wikipedia, we're just going right to the CIA-pedia here, because that even has information on it, believe it or not. God knows what else there is. But right there, when it talks about who she's born to, it lists her father, Robert Maxwell, and correctly lists him as a Czechoslovak-born Israeli intelligence agent. Love to see it.
I just want to say before you go further, I was sitting in the studio while Julian was just getting this last part together of the Christine Maxwell thing, and all I kept hearing audibly outside was, "Oh my God!" Then I heard, "It's real, it's real, it's real." So I just had to say that was.
Yeah.
It's maddening.
Yeah, we're going to get to the evidence here. It's indisputable beyond Wikipedia. Trust me, I'm not stopping at Wikipedia. I just want to start there. It's like a little warm-up. But when it talks about her career, Maxwell was an editor for her father's Pergamon Press publishers in the early 1970s. I have a feeling that's going to be in a future episode with us discussing that more. But according to Tatler, Maxwell spent most of the 1970s and 80s working for her father, which included running the West Coast office in the United States of Pergamon Press and involvement in one of his software acquisitions. In 1982, Maxwell acquired Information on Demand, one of the earliest information brokers, which was later renamed Research on Demand. An information broker or data broker, it's like specializes in collecting your fucking data. Right, so back in 1982, getting in the forefront of that industry, good foresight, Thief. Good early bet, right?
Yeah, they're good at early bets.
They're really good at early bets. Really good at early bets. So Maxwell is the creator and co-founder of Magellan, one of the first professionally curated online search/reference guides to internet content. That's not weird at all. In 1992, she created and co-authored one of the first hard copy reference guides to the internet. And they were both published by Macmillan Publishers. I think that's also the one. Am I fucking up right now? That's the one associated with
one
her
of the
father,
big,
right?
The Big Five.
Yes.
Language.
That's the textbook one that her father was printing. Again, we're going to discuss that in the future. After Magellan was acquired by competing search engine Excite in 1996, you know what Christine did, Joe?
This is the part, huh? This is the part.
She founded a company called Chiliad, a software company involved in the advanced, on-demand, massively scalable, intelligent mining of structured and unstructured data through the use of natural language search technologies. The firm's software was behind the data search technology used by the FBI's counterterrorism data warehouse. As of August 2019, Maxwell served as the board director of Chiliad. Now, let's pull up that next article, Dee.
You can't even make that up.
You can't.
August 2019.
We're going beyond Wikipedia now, just to make sure people out there understand. We're not just trusting whatever you want to say Wikipedia is these days. So, can you just zoom a little bit on this?
Let me zoom in for the folks at home.
All right. So, this is from the Business Wire in March 2008. Chiliad, the company that solved the 9/11 connecting the dots problem. Hires Dan Ferranti, a CEO industry veteran, assumes command to expand Chiliad's presence. For nearly 10 years, Chiliad has been quietly working. That's what they do. Quietly working behind the scenes to develop some of the most powerful and innovative software in the U.S. government's anti-terrorism arsenal. With the addition of Dan Ferranti, a veteran CEO with a proven 27-year track record in the information technology field, the Washington, D.C.-based company is preparing to extend the benefits of its groundbreaking technology beyond its already impressive client base. The phrase connecting the dots is central to understanding Chiliad's principal software product, Chiliad Discovery/Alert. Chiliad's founders, Christine Maxwell and others, were influenced by the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster and the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Investigations into both events concluded that information stored in incompatible databases and documents maintained by different departments and organizations could have allowed managers and officials to prevent those disasters. But there were simply no existing technology things to connect the dots across so many incompatible systems and organizations. Efforts to solve this problem hastened development efforts within Chiliad and drove the first deployments of Chiliad software within the U.S. intelligence community to create a virtual knowledge environment across distributed information stovepipes, databases, and applications. Go down, Dee, if I want to get to where they got the holy grail of who it is. Both the FBI and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the lead U.S. agencies in the war on terrorism, have seen the unique value Chiliad offers and has deployed the company's software to tame the mountains of data that must be sifted and analyzed to accomplish their mission. Now, again, let me practice what I preach here and talk about evidence leading to concrete foundations of a solution on the other side. And then I'm going to read what Deep pulled up. That's probably going to make me throw up. But does that mean for sure that Christine Maxwell, the daughter of Robert Maxwell, one of the most prolific spies to ever walk the earth, and the sister of Ghislaine Maxwell, a prolific spy who worked right next to Jeffrey Epstein on the biggest sex trafficking honeypot organization we've ever fucking seen, does that mean for sure that because her company just happened to collect all the data from FBI, and this article says NSA, but there's also data, I want you to check this, Steve, to make sure we got it so that people know its source, but I believe I'd also read that the data information was being shared with CIA as well. I want to make sure I don't miss that. You know, she might have just happened to found this data harvesting company, and honestly, as a patriotic, now, yes, Steve is saying thumbs up. They work with CIA too. As a patriotic American citizen who immigrated to America, she wants to give the gift of data sharing. You know, that's what I would give for Christmas to the intelligence agencies after 9/11. That is certainly possible. But it's very interesting when a woman connected to the said people I just mentioned is doing that right around the time and selling the product to the government right after the worst terrorist attack in the history of the nation. And right around the time where there's emails going back and forth to her sister talking about a 9/11 shadow commission.
Well, I think I want to. I just looked this up.
Are you going to upset me?
I don't know. This might just be pure spec, folks. Might be spec. But she stepped down August 2019 from Chiliad. Christine Maxwell, that's what that said?
Well, it said as of 2019, she was still serving as chairman of the board.
Okay. Now, the only thing that I haven't found some solid info on is like what happened to Chiliad post 2019. But in December 2019, Palantir secured a really large position in the U.S. government. $458 million production agreement.
For data analytics.
So the timing is crazy, dude. It's almost like she set up the foundation and said, yo, Pete, take the rock, yo. This ball yours, cuh.
Oh my God. Again.
Yeah, just spec.
Just spec.
Just spec, but
it's not in a court of law right now. We wouldn't win that case. The jury wouldn't even deliberate for very long. We'd lose.
they'd be like, this kid has 2 different socks on.
Right.
It'd be like, what are you doing?
But it's very interesting.
It is.
And it's very interesting when she spun up Chiliad too in the mid-90s. Again, that's spec. But there were people talking about the new future for America at the time. And that new future included an imminent invasion of Iraq long before 9/11 and well after Desert Storm. We know that. We've seen that. But wow, that's just... Sometimes it's too much. I want to pull up that.
Here you go. Alan Wade, after his work with Chiliad, was involved with Palantir.
And was heavily sponsored. Oh my God.
And sponsored
Jesus Christ.
Incutel.
Oh my God. Yeah, the original tweet I saw, again, I figured this was like, wow, not real, but it's real. It's like a bunch of fucking red alarm bells and shit. Breaking news. Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters. Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters are literally in control of the FBI computer systems, including NSA and Epstein files, which I have to say that might be a stretch.
A little stretch,
at this point. I don't think that's true. But the next part. Christine Maxwell co-founded Chiliad, providing data mining software to the FBI's counterterrorism warehouse post 9/11, enabling searches across agencies like CIA and NSA. That is true. Isabel Maxwell led Israeli firms Commutouch and Incognito with board roles at Perez Center for Peace and Israel Venture Network. That I I don't think I checked that one yet, but that does ring a bell. But Isabel Maxwell, this one I looked at, is employed by the World Economic Forum as a technology pioneer. And
Sick.
that gets right back full circle to like, you know, there being a Trilateral Commission and the things that these groups discuss. John even talked about how the woman that he knew who got into that then was able to go to like Davos with the same people discussing things from a different angle, but it's the same thing. And it's this kind of global order and this stuff that in the past I was like, yeah, some of that seems like there's some powerful people who want that for sure. But like the scope of when people would say, no, like most of them want it, or the people that actually run the world want it. I in the past I would have been like, that feels like you're reaching.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way anymore. I don't. There is a real and part of it also is then like tying together things we already knew with like the people that literally would be at the forefront of conspiracies like that when you talk about the Rockefellers and stuff and what that is. And I did some more pulling on that, by the way, after my talk with John on and off camera. And can you pull up the clip of Kiriakou talking about David Rockefeller real quick?
Yeah.
Because we got to talk about him. The grandson of the original Rockefeller. But this was from episode 388, where John tells a story about his interaction with David Rockefeller in Bahrain.
I told you about my encounter with David Rockefeller, did I not?
You did not tell me about that. No.
I was working in Bahrain in the American Embassy. I was the economic officer. And I was a longtime subscriber to this wonderful magazine called Art News Magazine. And I read this article about David Rockefeller being given this major like art world award for the work that he's done over the course of, 75 years or whatever it was for art in New York. And then we get a cable from the State Department saying that David Rockefeller is coming to Bahrain because he's being given an award by the Bahraini American Bankers Association. And the ambassador comes into my office, David Ransom, wonderful, wonderful ambassador, lovely human being, one of the best bosses I ever had. And he said, hey, we got a cable from state saying that David Rockefeller's coming out to Bahrain. He's going to collect this award from the Bankers Association. I said, the Bankers Association? And he said, yeah, I want you to be his control officer. I said, I'd love to be his control officer. What that means is you arrange the car, you arrange the hotel, you make sure he gets from point A to point B, and just make sure there are no problems. If he wants to go shopping, you take him shopping, you do anything he wants. I welcomed it. Well, as soon as the Bahrainis heard that David Rockefeller was coming, His Highness the Emir announces, we're going to do a state dinner, right? So the entire cabinet, the entire royal family, the entire diplomatic corps, all the ambassadors, all the credited diplomats. This is a major event, like the biggest social event of the year. It's at his main palace. There are like 500 people there. So I go and I was saving my See, I thought I was very clever. I was just a stupid kid. So I saved my congratulations for his award for the receiving line. So I say to the Emir, it's such a pleasure to see you, Your Highness. And I said to the Prime Minister, we didn't like each other very much. Like, hello.
Hello.
Hello. He would always say, hello, Kiriakou. Yeah. And then he
You're
would
like
kind of
a
stare at me.
memes.
You're like the spy version of a Veep episode. I don't know if anyone ever told you that. But.
And then comes David Rockefeller. And I said, Mr. Rockefeller, I wanted to congratulate you on your, whatever it was called, award. Oh, he lights up. Thank you so much. I'm so proud of that award, the Guggenheim and the Met. And then I, go. And then the next night he collects his award from the Bankers Association and he leaves. So we had a 9:00 meeting in the embassy every day. It was, the ambassador, the deputy chief of mission, and the heads of all the departments. So I'm in there in the morning meeting. And the ambassador says, so the Rockefeller visit went very well. And I said, because I'm an idiot, I said, why would a guy who's almost 100 years old fly halfway around the world to collect a little trophy from some bankers that he's never met before? And the ambassador goes like this. He goes, John, You're supposed to be the smart one. I said, what? What am I missing? He's like, he didn't come for the Bankers Award. That was his cover stop. And I said, so what was he doing here? He said, David Rockefeller is the secret back channel to Saddam Hussein. Yeah. He came here to make it look like he had business in the Middle East. We put him on a military transport this morning and sent him to Baghdad to tell Saddam Hussein to cut it out or you're going to get a bomb up your ass. And then he flew back from Baghdad. And I was like, man, I have a lot to learn.
Okay, pause it there. That's perfect. Again, evidence that pulls up Tucker Carlson's supra government idea straight into the real world, where you have intel agencies being a liaison fixer service for the people who actually run the world and get to tell the world leaders what happens and what doesn't. Basically, who gets to die.
Yeah.
Now, can you pull up, there's a link there, David Rockefeller's Wikipedia.
Yep.
I actually want to start with the very bottom. Because, again...
What's that, awards?
No. Just go to International Conspiracy. Yeah. This is something that has been in the public domain for 23, 24 years since David Rockefeller became the first Rockefeller to ever write an autobiography. But again, when we talk about hiding in plain sight, there's no hiding. He's saying exactly what it is. This is in response to accusations regarding wanting basically like an NWO. He wrote in his 2003 book, for more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents such as my encounter with Castro to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Yeah, because they don't wield any of that, right? Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it.
Wow. I had never seen that before. Wow.
That's exactly what it sounds like. I mean, he was nice enough to actually lay out the whole preamble ahead of time and say, yeah, I'm guilty. That's me. That's what we do. When you look at this guy's life, and you look at, obviously he's a Rockefeller, he's the grandson of fucking gazillionaire, but you look at where he was and the things he did, someone who developed, you know, the powerhouse that became JP Morgan Chase as we know it today. It was Chase Manhattan back when he was working there, but he worked in and around intelligence during World War II and then went into the banking industry and became someone. This is a guy who had extremely close ties to Allen Dulles and was basically around in the area as a fucking Rockefeller coming of age at the time that CIA is founded. And we are now hearing direct first-person sources of this guy gallivanting halfway across the world saying, give me a military transport, bitch, and give me a fucking cover story of some banking award so that I can go tell Saddam Hussein and remind him who his daddy is.
Wow.
David Rockefeller was the founder of the Trilateral Commission. That's why I'm telling this story. The fucking founder. I'm not even going to get into the other people who were a part of the founding committee, if you will, but he was the founder of it. It's real. And there's another link I have there, Deef, under, oh shit. It should be under where I have the Trilateral Commission. It's the video of Epstein
Jeffrey
talking about it.
Yeah, I got that right here.
So I'm going to have you cut to like the 120 mark on this. Before the 120 mark, Epstein is just fucking rambling, almost incoherently, talking about his associations with Rockefeller and being on the board of their foundation, stuff like that. And then we can play it right here, Deef. Let's let it roll.
So he thought that there was a world that existed that would be a combination of both politics and business and leadership. What do I mean? He formed something called the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission is some spooky stuff. People said it was the Illuminati, there's some mystery about it, people that ran the world. It was politicians, but David said most countries, the politicians get elected for 4 years or 8 years, separate from the royal families in England or in the Middle East. Someone's there for 4 years and then they're not there anymore. The most important people to have stability and consistency would be businessmen. So he formed this Trilateral Commission of businessmen and politicians from 3 major continents. So it was the North Americans, the Europeans, and the Asians. So he said to me, would you like to be on the Trilateral Commission? Now, I was 30 years old, 32 years old. I said, great. And he said, well, you have to fill out this application so they have your bio. And I looked at the list of people, and it was Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, Paul Volcker, every great leader in America, the Asians, the Japanese, and with a very long description of their history. And they asked me to fill in what I would like to have written. And I wrote Jeffrey Epstein, comma, just a good kid, which I thought was funny. Nobody else did.
Why the fuck would they? It's a similar question what you heard at the beginning there. Why are they letting a fucking kid from Coney Island on the Trilateral Commission? But this has been documented before. I forget who it was, but like it was written about in books in the late 90s when no one knew who Jeffrey Epstein was, that he was on the Trilateral Commission. And I returned to this because they're discussing arms deals, according to John's source at these places. And arms deals are deals that are governments use to move weapons around and fund conflicts and wars around the world, which basically puts people in a position where there's going to be a lot of death. And if you want to get into population control and their one world government type things, well, here you go. You have the guy, David Rockefeller, saying he wants a one world government, and you have him creating commissions that are facilitating these deals and having them done through that fixer class, that middle class between the presidents and the people who run the world, which are the people like Jeffrey Epstein and Adnan Khashoggi and everything that they touch and they're around. And it gets back to the incestuous relationship of all these groups of people with each other on each layer, the incestuous relationship of the presidents and the government bureaucracy, the incestuous relationships of the people in the fixer class, and the incestuous relationships of the people in the top class, and how they maybe go across those little fucking classes with each other and have some weird sex parties and stuff. I don't know. It's weird. But like, yeah, man, when you have a moment like we had where we're tying one of the most notorious arms dealers to ever live, Adnan Khashoggi, who worked directly with Jeffrey Epstein and worked with all these guys like the David Rockefellers of the world, when we see that and then something as quote-unquote simple as Dodi Fayed, the last guy dating Princess Diana, who had the most influence of anyone in the world, who's killed with her in her very suspicious car crash in Paris, happens to be the fucking guy's nephew. Like, it gets nuts when you start thinking about how it all ties together. And I want to put this as a side anecdote just to give you an idea. I remember reading a book, Gideon's Spies, a couple years ago. And the first chapter literally made my heart stop because it's discussing, it's a book by Gordon Thomas, I want to say his name was. Gordon Thomas or Gordon Brown. We can check that. But one of his main sources was, I believe, Ari Ben Menashe, the former Israeli spy who, you know, speaks out around a lot of these and is persona non grata with them now. But first chapter is describing Akatsya, code name, I want to say Henry. I don't know if I'm remembering that right, in Paris. And it talks about how Paris was like, of all the places in Europe, it was the biggest hub for Mossad to have their Katya is like a case agent. And it's telling the story about a source that this guy was working at the Ritz Hotel, which Thief and I just attended in December. Told that story in some podcast. Very interesting place. But as I'm reading the chapter, it starts to become clear, like they're describing what types of source a guy like this Katya would look for in a place like that. You didn't want someone too high up because it's too obvious. You didn't want someone like a janitor because they really don't know anything. You needed someone in between those two. So he starts talking about this guy Henri, who's a facilitates transportation of high-profile guests and things like that. And my heart stopped because he's talking about Henri, the fucking driver of the car, the drunk driver of the car that ended up killing Diana and Dodi Fayed. And the Katya was outside the front of the Ritz that night. And what's also discussed is how the Ritz was the most popular place in Europe for Middle Eastern oil deals and Arab nations to discuss arms deals and things like that. So they righteously so would be trying to spy on a place like that. And all of these places from the Arab countries, as far as I know, and in this case also like a Mossad spy, were present the night that the most famous woman in world history was killed. Which I don't even know what to do with that. Very, very interesting. But the fact that the man she's killed with, the final man she happens to be dating, is the nephew of Adnan Khashoggi, who's connected to all these places. All these places. Extremely, extremely interesting. And you can look at things like this and ask yourself these questions without proof. There's no proof of anything here. I'm just asking questions related to a lot of very weird contextual examples around like a big event, one big event right here, and how it may tie back to people like this. But seeing that kind of world bump up right into John Kiriakou's world in such a brazen way, it's like, who does CIA work for then? It ain't the fucking president.
No, most certainly not.
It ain't the fucking president. And that gets real. That's an uncomfortable conversation that's important to be had now as we start to look at the real class structure that runs the world. But we said we were going to do it at the beginning, Deef. Let's do it. I'm skipping some stuff we had on there. I knew this would happen because we're not going to have enough time, so we'll have to punt some stuff to next week. But I do not want to punt the Lex Wexner stuff. Let's start with the first clip right there. I have a few in there. But one thing I do want to say about Les Wexner's testimony, well, two things. Number one, like the Clintons who are about to be deposed on this subject, he was deposed on his own turf in his own sprawling mansion out in Ohio. The Clintons are going to be deposed on their own turf in their own sprawling mansion in Chappaqua. Why are these powerful people getting the treatment of they get to be deposed on their turf, and you got the senators and congressmen got to come to them where they are? Why are they not being pulled up in front of Congress just like Pam Bondi, as it should be, in front of the American people right there with all the cameras and all the bright lights and everything to answer these questions? That's a reasonable question to ask. Why are they getting special treatment? So that's interesting. The second thing is, I am no body language expert officially or anything like that. Obviously, in a job like this, Thief and I probably are better than a lot of people in reading body language, but we're not trained like the guys on YouTube who are geniuses and catch every fucking micro thing. I would love to have one of those guys break down this full deposition, though, because the nervousness, the crossed arms, the moving his arms at every single time and tucking in his shoulders like this and his head and his neck down in an obsequious manner. I'm referring to Les Wexner. And the pauses of words and the nervous laughing. I mean, he was shitting himself. This was a very, that I know. I'd love to know more detail than that from someone who's an expert, but this is one of the world's most powerful men, a billionaire to the nth degree, who's gotten away with a lot of things, in my opinion. Pretty clear. That look like a scared, abandoned dog in a corner, for sure. So let's get to the first one here. This is where he discusses basically the bona fides that Jeffrey Epstein offered him?
I think it was his experience at an industrial level, like working for a big company like Bear Stearns. And then he had done personal work for the Rothschild family in France.
Personal wealth management, essentially?
I don't know.
We've
See
seen
the
some
blink rate?
reports that he would present himself as a bounty hunter, that he would find people's missing money. Do you recall him saying anything like that?
No.
Blink rate again. See that? See his eyes?
Well, specifically, I talked to Ellie de Rothschild, and so I mentioned that earlier. So he represented their whole family, so there have been a whole bunch of people. I mean, most of them I never would have met, but I knew Ellie. I never met people, but there were people that called me that either insinuated or said they knew Jeffrey through a financial relationship. And so, I mean, they could have been actors, but at the time, a guy calls me up. I'll give you an example.
Flipping out.
It's just because I want you to understand this, is it's so confusing to me. He would say, like, I'm providing financial advice to the founders of Google. I'm providing financial advice to Jeff Bezos. I'm providing financial
Jeff
advice.
Bezos just punching
the
air
chief
right now. God
technologist at
damn it.
Google. Wow, I'm in good company because these are really smart guys with a lot of money. And you have to put yourself in the mindset.
All right, pause it.
Of you.
Also interesting that Google and guys in Bezos wouldn't be relevant for that type of clout until at least the early 2000s for that to be said. And he began his relationship with Epstein in the mid 80s. So the one to focus in on is he talked to Ellie de Rothschild. Another thing that happened is he was asked about Bob Meister, who introduced him to Epstein. And he was asked if Meister ever warned him about Epstein. He says no. Can we play this real quick?
I don't remember.
And how did you first come to meet Mr. Epstein?
It was really by accident.
By accident.
I was friends with a couple, Bob and Wendy Meister. And I was in Florida, and I'd never been to Florida. So they were driving me around, showing me what South Florida looked like. And they showed me the Breakers Hotel, and they were just driving around the driveway. And Bob stopped the car, and he said, "There's somebody you should meet. Really smart, savvy guy named Jeffrey Epstein." And so they stopped the car. I was sitting in the back seat, and they introduced me to Jeffrey, and we drove off. That was about it.
So at that time, you had no knowledge of Mr. Epstein until Mr. Meister introduced you to him?
Never heard of him, never saw him, never met him.
Did Mr. Meister ever raise any concerns about Mr. Epstein?
No, he didn't.
All right, pause it there. In 2021, there's a second part to this post, Steve, if you X out of that. There it is. In Vanity Fair, this is listed, I'll just read it off. Wexner met Epstein sometime around 1986. They were introduced by Wexner's close friend, the insurance mogul Robert Meister, whose firm handled insurance for the Limited, his company. I spoke with Meister in April, and he opened up for the first time about the origins of Wexner and Epstein's relationship. Meister, whose estimation of Epstein had done a total 180, gave his friend a general warning about his character. Meister says he and his wife, Wendy, warned Wexner to stay away from Epstein. You know, I'm actually more inclined to believe Les Wexner on this one. That to me seems like a post-Epstein having shit happen, people ducking and covering and acting like they always saw through it, like we've called out so many other people for. So Les Wexner might actually be telling the truth about Meister right there. It's interesting, though, because we immediately have a discrepancy between two people discussed in an on-the-record deposition, which means if he's not telling the truth, there's an example of what could be one of many examples of perjury. Let's also pull up the The close friends one. This is so fucking bad. All right.
Shall we?
Yep.
Been reported repeatedly that you were close friends with Mr. Epstein. Why do you think people would come to that conclusion?
Objection, hearsay.
Blink grape.
Speculation, because he would tell him that. But he told me he was friends. I mean, if you told me that you were friends with Bill Clinton, I would believe it. Or if anybody told me somebody was a friend, I would believe it. So I think the perspective that I have now, and I think what's really important for this group to understand, is that as I look back at it, I was conned by the world Olympic all-time con artist. And you look at, I read in the news all the people he knew, royalty, kings, princes, and all that. An incredible con artist.
All right, pause it.
Do you think?
So a man worth fucking billions of dollars who owns all these huge companies, who signed over power of attorney to Jeffrey Epstein, who gave him the biggest townhouse and most historic townhouse in Manhattan for $10, who handed over all of his finances to him and apparently didn't have enough fucking foresight to even talk to him on a daily basis about it, because in another part of his deposition, he talks about how he was under the impression that Epstein had other clients, meaning he wasn't full-time for the fucking guy. I mean, he wasn't running a full-time Leslie Wexner family office, which he does need with that much money. You telling me that for that many years, for at least 2 decades, and that's if he's to be believed that he cut ties in 2007, which I do not believe, but for at least 2 decades and maybe 3 plus, he trusted Jeffrey Epstein to the T and was completely conned and never once had a thought about, maybe this guy who's like a college dropout from Coney Island, and I never know what he's doing. I never know what's going on. Like, what is he? He just said he represented these people, and but maybe I should look at this, and maybe at the very least I should diversify my holdings. Maybe I should take $1 billion and give it to another fucking manager somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe Bill Ackman would do it. I'm sure he would have very much obliged.
He's like Stephen J. Lockjaw in one battle after another. He's like, I was raped in reverse. You
You were raped and reversed. The enemy sought what I had and decided that it was more valuable.
My power. She was a semen demon. Oh. That's literally he's literally pulling, the rape in reverse.
Oh, that's
crazy.
So good. That's so good. Whenever we're talking about Wexner here too as well, obviously we're trying to find all the hardcore evidence beyond just the helping Epstein facilitate all this stuff that could point to Wexner participating in things like this or being involved in the trafficking directly. You're going to hear from an Epstein survivor I had in who discusses how the trafficking would happen in the modeling world, which is, this is the guy who ran Victoria's Secret. That is the famous Victoria's Secret fashion show. You're involved in that world. When you're doing that, it's not to say right there that means you're guilty, but like it was a very common thing where women would just be taken around as escorts, and girls, underage girls, would have that happen. But if you remember in the 2020 James Patterson Netflix documentary about Epstein, Maria Farmer, one of the survivors, was in that, and she was the artist, and she was drawing throughout the documentary, and they showed it at the end. When she was done, she was drawing this huge mural. Deef has it up on the screen, called The Sea Tiles, which was like a reptilian kind of thing of all the evil people she came across, from Epstein to Clinton to, there's just a million different people on there. But she specifically made Les Wexner, the head of the actual snake coming out of the ground, because she viewed him as the head of the whole operation. And I may remind you, Maria Farmer, her sister, was also a survivor as well. Maria Farmer was Jeffrey Epstein's office assistant for a long time. She was around him for a while and saw a lot of things. Doesn't mean I can't therefore say that means every single claim is real. I'm inclined to believe her on a lot of things. And it's funny when people put a lot of stuff that may be inconvenient to how the world order functions aside when a victim says it who was there. And we're seeing this again and again and again. And it's just pissing me off to no end. Deep down at the bottom, there's a check-in on our favorite friend. I got to get that before we leave.
Check in?
Yeah. And put a link there. I've talked about how much these people hate you. This micro elite, and how much they laugh in your face. Because they can just get away with it. And I have genuine contempt for a guy like Howard Lutnick. I really do. This is Howard Lutnick at the State of the Union the other night. With the audacity, there's no volume to it, D, if you don't need it. With the audacity to show his face on camera. Let's just play it for people. Look at him shaking hands with everyone, smiling, glad-handing. Says, "What's up to Chuck Schumer? Good to see you again, sir." Goes up, Roberts. Watch Roberts' body language here. Chief Justice. He wants nothing to fucking do with the guy. But this is what they do. He's continuing his job. He's pretending nothing happens. He's pretending that he's not a complete bold-faced liar. He's pretending that it's not extremely weird that he was neighbors with the guy for so long, one Jeffrey Epstein. He's pretending that none of it is the case, and he can just continue doing what he does, and the president allows it to happen. And I just find that so wrong. And I started this point earlier, but I want to close on this because I got off it. And I talked about how this really is such a red line for me, and I have to admit sometimes like it's gotten me to the point where my emotions aren't in check. And that's something, I know how to change the volume in an appropriate way on a podcast. I've been doing this a long time. I enjoy that. And, sometimes you can laugh really loud or, get worked up about something in a healthy way. And like I said, the first time I got worked up about Lutnick a few weeks ago was just raw and real, and that was fine. It is what it is. But I've been getting worked up on and off camera a little bit about this, where I can feel my blood pressure actually rising. And I'd like to get a little better control of that, because as angry as this makes me and as angry as it should make many of you, or pretty much fucking anyone who really looks at this case, me sitting here and constantly screaming about it is not going to make things better. And if you're doing the same thing, that's not going to make things better either. We have to sift through this stuff, as awful as some of it is, and look at this with as much of a balanced head. Does that mean that I can't get a little bit worked up? No, I think that's fine. But I just want to admit that. Like I can feel it. I can feel it in some podcasts where I'm getting mad, and that is just not, it's not normal. I'm someone that usually has great control of that, but it's telling me that there's just something so sickeningly different about this one that it's gotten me to that point. So if you're hearing some of that in some of the podcasts and it's a little much, I apologize for that. Again, I'm not going to apologize for looking into this case and feeling a certain type of way about it, but I'll try to keep some of that under check. And if there's a moment where it really doesn't need to be under check because it's ridiculous, I'll try to make that call, and I hope it's the appropriate call when I do. But I don't want to be just out here fucking screaming for streams all the time. That's certainly not the objective. So I'll try to watch that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to watch myself too. I feel like I've been getting crazy on here. Everyone's been just like, oh my God, this guy's out of his fucking mind. So my apologies, guys.
Yeah, Deep just sits there with like, ooh, there he goes again.
I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. But everybody, we got some great episodes coming up. Like I said, we're going to have Katarina Schultz coming in to discuss everything that's going on in Mexico. I'm putting out another episode with Dave Frank, which actually was covering all his work on the ground against the cartels in Mexico, which is relevant to stuff coming up. I have the Epstein Survivor episodes. There's 2 of them coming up as well. I'm just trying to play with the order because we have a lot of content we're getting to. And also I'm going to be putting out Sonny Faz and Beck Lover, which is kind of a different perspective than the Roca News guys had on some of the same issues. So we like to cover both spectrums of the issue, and that I didn't even actually plan that one that way. It just kind of worked out that way as it pertains to Islam, conflicts in the Middle East, stuff like that. So I'm doing my best with all of it. Again, my opinions change, your opinions change, but I'm trying to look at it from every angle that we can, and we'll continue to do that. That's what we've always done, and that's all I got, Dave.
Same here.
All right.
Same here, brother.
Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. What's up, guys? Thanks so much for watching the video. If you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button before you leave, as well as leaving a like on the video. It's a huge, huge help. You can join my Patreon via the link in the description, and you can also join my clipping community via the Discord link down below. See you for the next episode.